I want to do it just right now at the moment because I have a couple of questions I want to ask you, building on what we just heard. And you may have gone over this in Q&A, forgive me for having been driving and not checking Twitter while I was doing that, which is probably good. Do you have any concerns as an investor in companies like Twitter, Foursquare, Outside In, that are very geolocal driven, that it could be that this really is just a feature of a large platform like Google, Facebook, Microsoft?
Well, you know, I subscribe to the Tim O'Reilly Internet Operating System kind of worldview, and I think the Internet is the platform, and I think that Google is a feature, it's a series of features now, but search is the feature that Google first owned, and they may be on their way to owning email and a few others. You know, Facebook is a photo sharing site, honestly, really. When you really want to, and maybe some chat, maybe
with a little graph attached to that. Let's get into that then. So, what do you think of the Open Graph? Do you believe that it's as important as many do?
No.
No, just the distribution network for photos.
You know, I mean, everybody's got social graphs. Google's got a social graph. You know.
But according to Perry, that social graph is inept.
Is what?
Socially inept. Did I get that note
Well,
right?
that's because it hasn't been lit up, right? You know, they don't have a photo sharing app that lights it up, right? They have an email app that lights it up, but that's not really very social. Emails, you know, one-on-one. Yeah, Google hasn't lit up its social graph, but they have. That's my view.
Yeah. And are you concerned about that when it gets lit up?
No, because I think that every large-scale web app has a social graph. So I don't think that the social graph is anything to be scared of.
It's not something that one company can necessarily own.
No, it's the web.
But is the social graph a feature?
Yes.
And if search is a feature, Google owns that. Therefore.
But I don't. Okay, right. But I don't think that Google will ever decide to use Facebook's social graph on its web apps. I don't think Twitter will ever decide to use Facebook's social graph on its web app.
Yahoo has decided to do that.
Well, that's a shame, isn't it?
I don't know if it is or not, actually. It might be, it might not be. It sort of seems like there's battle lines being drawn.
Capitulation.
It's capitulation.
In my opinion.
Is there anyone from Yahoo here? You are a brave soul. I don't mean that because you work at Yahoo. I just mean it because you raised your hand. As you know, I have some love for Yahoo. I read a post saying that I don't think they're quite dead yet.
They're not dead yet.
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, why do you have to go and, you know, decide that you're going to let Facebook control the social graph on Yahoo? It's a bad idea.
Bad idea, but they're going ahead with it. We'll see how it turns out. So, tell me again. You know, is there anything about these large platforms, the sort of, you know, the Google, the 4 horsemen or 5 horsemen, so to speak, that concerns you when you look at your current investment portfolio and you wake up in the middle of the night and send emails to your CEO saying, "Watch out for this from Google," or
I worry about Apple, because they control increasingly the devices, and that's why I think Android is so important.
So you're a Droid X user, is that correct?
I use the Nexus 1 actually.
The Nexus 1,
Right.
She's sort of the king of the smart superphones.
Yes.
In that it was discontinued quickly after.
It is dead. That is dead, right?
But you've tweeted and written about how you enjoyed that. And so, what is it about Android that you think is important?
It's open. It's a platform that you can. It's open source. The software itself is open source, and you can do what you want, and you don't have to play by, you know, one-man rules.
Right. And when you think about Android and kind of how it's developing, do you do you believe in the thesis that some have put out there that it feels a bit like Mac and Windows all over again, and that Windows was clearly not as good a user experience, but because it was broadly licensed and picked up by tons of hardware developers, it grew much more quickly and eventually got market near monopoly?
I think we're seeing that already. But what we're not seeing, which suggests to me that it's a slightly different world, is that there's way more Android handsets than there are iPhone handsets, and I think that it won't be too far from now that there'll be 2, 3, 4 times as many Android users as there are iPhone users. But it still feels to me like there are way more apps on the iPhone than there are on Android. And so we haven't seen the developers move their allegiances to the Android yet. And so and maybe that'll happen. But
how many people out there are app developers? Just so we develop apps in some way or another. Keep your hand up if you're doing it for Android. That was
that's good.
Yeah,
that's really good. So I think people should develop for both iPhone and Android. Maybe they should develop for BlackBerry. Maybe they should develop for some of the other platforms that are out there in the world. But they definitely should be developing for both Android and Apple. And I think that'll keep, to some extent, it'll keep Apple somewhat honest.
So in a world, put yourself 2, 3 years out from now, where Android is, clearly the in your estimation, the largest kind of set of users that are available for an app, for a creator of value who wants to, get to an audience. Do you think that environment is as friendly to a developer? For example, what's it been like for your companies that you've invested in to develop for Android, and what do you wish was better than the experience currently?
I think they like I think they like developing for Android better than developing for iPhone. But there's still
no one can find the apps. I mean, there's
you can't really find the apps on the iPhone either, right? You can find the top 10 apps in any category. I mean, both these marketplaces are horrible in terms of trying to get anybody to find you, because they're all leaderboard driven. Someone's got to come up with a better model than that.
Hard to do that in the Apple App Store because you don't have the signals you need to create value above the level of Apple's world, right? But you could do that with Android.
Right. I mean, that's why Twitter had to take control of the mobile clients, because it was great when there was 10 mobile clients out there, but none of them were being on the leaderboard.
Right.
So nobody was finding them. And so now there's one sort of named mobile client for iPhone and one named mobile client for Android, and now they're in the top 10.
Right. And they'll probably stay there.
It's kind of sucks though.
In other words, there isn't sort of the articulation and the nuance of finding just that right thing for you as opposed to whatever everybody else.
Jobs took the music model, right, and he applied it to software, right? So he took sort of the iTunes model, which is chart driven, right, and applied it to software, and I think that's unfortunate.
Let me pull back a minute and ask a couple of questions that came in when I asked folks for input. One of them was to sort of ask you to pull back and look at the model of investing generally. And I don't know if you got into this again in the Q&A.
No, not really.
There's been a lot written and discussed about the breakdown of what might be called the traditional venture model.
Right.
And many hold Union Square up as an example of a new model. Can you explain what you see as the distinction?
I don't think we're doing much that's different, honestly, in our firm. There are a lot of people who are doing things that are very different, and venture business is changing, and I think there's generational change going on. So a lot of the great practitioners of the venture business who were active in the 80s and 90s and even the first decade of 2000s are retiring, and venture firms are made of the people that are in them, and it's not that common that firms can survive, you know, the successions from generation to generation. So I think new firms are coming up that will be the top tier firms that are different than the firms that were the top tier firms in the 80s and 90s. And so that's one thing that's going on. Another thing that's going on in web and technology is that it's become much more capital efficient, and so you have to be able to write a $500,000 check now